Hello and welcome back to our speaking course. In Lesson 1, we learned how to introduce ourselves professionally. In Lesson 2, we focused on expressing opinions and supporting them with reasons and examples. Today we are moving to a different type of communication, which is storytelling. More specifically, we will focus on how to talk about personal experience or an event that taught you something important in your teaching career. Because at the end of the day, what unifies us the most is our teaching responsibility. And at the same time, what makes each of us shine on his own is their personal experience. Every one of us has stories worth talking about, maybe classroom management, maybe evaluation or mistakes we made and learned from. And being able to tell these in English makes us capable of having meaningful conversations, with colleagues from other universities and foreign universities about our professional experiences. So, by the end of this lesson, you will be able to tell a clear and engaging story from your experience, organize the events of this experience logically, use narrative language effectively, describe the challenges and the turning points in these experiences, and hopefully speak for about 2 to 3 minutes about that professional story or experience you had. Now, to achieve these objectives, I firstly have an example for you to understand what I'm talking about. On this slide, you will listen to a teacher describing an experience that changed the way they interacted with students in class. As you listen, I want you to focus on these specific points. What made this story told by this teacher interesting to you as you listen? Was it difficult in terms of vocabulary? Was it long? Was it challenging in terms of following the chronological order of the story? I want you to pay attention also to the structure as you listen to him speaking.
A few years ago, I asked my university students to write anonymously on a piece of paper. What is one thing your teachers do that discourages you from learning? I expected, some comments about exams, maybe grades or workload. Instead, one paper contained only one sentence. When teachers ask a question and nobody answers, the silence feels longer for you than it does for us. Yeah, the paper said that I was rushing my students' answers. I watched myself the next class, and here you go right there. I actually realized the student was right. Whenever I asked a question, I waited only a few seconds before answering it myself. I thought I was helping the class move forward. In reality, I was taking away their chance to think. The next semester, I started waiting. Sometimes 10 seconds, sometimes 15. At first it felt uncomfortable. Then students began speaking. More hands appeared, more discussions happened. That moment was when I learned that teaching is not always about saying the right thing. Sometimes it is about staying silent long enough for someone else to, find their voice.
You can realize after hearing this story that this teacher is talking about active feedback from his students and the way it changed his teaching style. So the story is engaging and it is organized chronologically. One reason speaking about a personal experience becomes easier is that most good stories follow a simple structure. First, we have the situation. Where were you? What was happening? For example, when I started teaching my first university class, this is the beginning. Next comes the challenge. Something goes wrong. For example, I was extremely nervous and forgot part of my lesson. Then comes the turning point. This is the moment when something changes. You try a new approach. You make a new decision. For example, instead of panicking, I asked students to discuss a question in pairs. Finally, we have the outcome, the result, what happened in the end, and what lesson did you learn. For instance, the discussion worked very well, and I realized that interaction can be more powerful than perfect preparation. From this example, we can set ourselves a toolkit, a speaking toolkit, as I like to call it, of useful expressions that we can use to make things easier for us. To start speaking about a personal story or experience, you can say, a few years ago, or when I first started, or simply one day. To describe a challenge, you can say, I faced a difficult situation, things did not go as planned, or I was surprised to discover. For turning points or moments of new decisions, you can say, then something unexpected happened. At that moment, that's when I realized, or suddenly. And for outcomes, you can say, in the end, as a result, looking back, or I learned that. You simply choose the expressions that feel natural to you and use them to tell your own experience. Let's take a break and do this simple task to make sure that you can follow with the order of a simple story. You have one sentence that tells a story or experience, and you need to complete it by choosing one word from the list you have in front of you. When I first started teaching, I was very nervous. I realized that students responded positively when I spoke naturally. Do we say, finally, looking back, that is when, however, in the end, or I think? And I want you to choose the word or the expression that sounds most natural to you and fulfill the purpose of this story. Now we will see a real-life example. In this slide, you will now listen to a short excerpt from TED Talk by Priyam Baruah titled, What Makes Students Excited to Learn? About student engagement and students learning in general. As you listen, try to identify the four parts that we discussed. What was the situation? What was the challenge? What changed? What was the solution she came up with? And what lesson was learned from this experience?
Now, there's a particular experience that has resonated with me as someone who has been both a student and a teacher. Outside of school, a group of students and I across the Sacramento region are currently managing a nonprofit organization that seeks to teach and present skills relating to presenting and preparing speech and debate cases. And one of the classes that I taught had to do with how to write a basic 5-paragraph speech. And the lesson that I taught for that day was how to write a thesis statement. I now welcome everyone to take a seat in my classroom. The thesis statement is like a roadmap, and it's 1 to 2 sentences that should tell the reader what the speech is about, and the simple formula includes the main point you are trying to deliver, followed by a first, second, and third point of analysis. Now, I'm not going to stand here and read the rest of the slide verbatim like I did with the class that day, mostly because I'm already starting to see a little bit of fidgeting and blank stares on the audience as I did with the students that day. And that is completely fine. That is normal and what is expected. So I decided to do something different and abandon the lecture presentation. And instead, I took this car, detoured, veered off, and took a new route to get to my destination. Instead of going off the lecture presentation slides, I want to connect with everyone in this classroom on a human-to-human level. And so what I want everyone to do is think of their favorite movie of all time. Got it? Now think of 2 to 3 reasons why this movie is in particular is your favorite. And now I want you to join those 2 ideas together into 1 to 2 sentences. My favorite movie is blank because reason 1, reason 2, and reason 3. Without even knowing it, every single person in this audience just created a thesis statement, and we didn't even have to use the presentation to do so. This is exactly what my students went through that day, and it was such a simple yet effective exercise, especially for a group of students who was learning how to write a speech for the first time. And what I learned from this experience is that sometimes we need to be able to deviate away from strict agendas or presentation plans, and instead get a reading of the room before any lesson is taught.
Now, again, I want you to pause the video, repeat it for however many times you want. I want you to take a moment and try to answer those questions. The situation, the challenge, the turning point, and the lesson that was learned. Now that you have seen many examples and are equipped with the expressions you need, think about one of your own experiences. Could be your first day of teaching, could be a mistake you made, a challenge you overcame, a successful lesson. I want you to imagine yourself about to tell me or other colleagues about your experience. You start by answering these 4 simple questions you have in front of you. Where were you? Here you describe the setting and where the whole thing started. What happened? That is the story, the core of the experience you had. The problem you faced. What changed? How did you handle it? Or what did you do to fix the situation? And finally, what did you learn? What was the positive lesson or result you got from that experience? Your answer to these questions will be the foundation of telling your experience. And I want you to write only brief notes using the expressions we saw in this lesson. I want you to keep them short. Just few words for each sections are enough. Your experience or your story should include, obviously, the situation, as we said, the challenge, the turning point, the outcome, and the lesson you learned. And then you practice. And I want you to aim for 2 to 3 minutes of slow speaking. Your task now is to record your story. Focus on your pronunciation. Do not worry about being perfect. If you forget a word or make a small mistake, just keep recording. Don't stop. Because what matters is helping your listener understand what happened and what you learned from this experience, not the perfect use of the English language. After recording, listen back to your story and evaluate your performance. I want you to ask yourself, did you organize your story clearly? Did you explain the challenge and the turning point and the lesson you learned as you learned in this lesson? Could you link the ideas together? And most importantly, could you speak naturally without reading directly from your notes after practicing? If you answer yes to most of these questions, then you did a perfect job. Congratulations on completing lesson 3. Today, you learned how to transform a professional experience into a clear and engaging story. In the next lesson, we will focus on problem solving and how to present solutions to challenges we face as university teachers. Thank you for your time and your hard work for today.